Hello, golf fans. Chris Terrell here with patreon.com/jagerbombs to bring you another DFS PGA video. Before we get into this week's video, I want to tell you a little bit about how you can find my content. I have cheat sheets. I have access to my Slack channel. Got some one-on-one coaching in there. I provide a ton of up-to-date information on all the sports that I cover. So if you head over to patreon.com/jagerbombs, for $5 per sport per month or $10 for all sports. That's American. That's $7 Canadian per sport per month or $13.50 Canadian for all sports per month as well. You get access to that Slack chat, to the one-on-one coaching, to all of my cheat sheets. And right now I cover NHL, college basketball, League of Legends, PGA, soccer, UFC, college football back next season, NBA. Baseball's coming up here shortly. NFL's done for the season. NASCAR's going strong. I cover trucks, Xfinity, as well as the Cup Series. And then here we got the All Sports package as well. So to get in on that, to get that content, get over to patreon.com/jagerbombs today and join the winning team. With that, let's jump into the video. Two events this week. We're going to cover them both here. First of all, we'll go over the World Golf Championship event. Normally, this is the WGC Mexico. With COVID-19, the travel restrictions, that has been canceled, postponed. I'm not sure if it's coming back next year. Either way, the Florida Swing is going to start early this year, and the WGC this time is going to be the Workday Championships, and it's held at the Concession Golf Club. So we're going to look at that here real quick. So we've got two par fives under 400 yards, 5 from 400 to 450, and 4 from 3 from 450 plus. The par fives, some of them are pretty meaty here. We've got a 590-yard 17th hole. We've got a 606-yard 7th hole, 577-yard 3rd, and then the 13th is one of the easier ones at 545 yards. We don't have any statistics on this course, but just kind of reading through some stuff on PGAtour.com. These par fives look to be very hard. So keep that in mind, something I'm going to be watching out for as the tournament goes, especially in terms of looking at targeting guys for showdowns in rounds 2, 3, and 4. This is a no-cut event. So everyone in the field here, as you can see, is going to play all the rounds. We've got an elite field. Every player inside the top 10 and 48 of the top 50 in the world are teeing it up this week. So we've got, I would say, a little bit more major-like pricing, a little bit softer. As you can see, we've got no one over 12K, and we've got some pretty darn good players I'll talk about here in a bit that seem to be a little bit underpriced, just kind of due to the field strength. So we're going to talk about that here shortly. I just want to go over this course, seeing as the only one that I know of, actually two, I don't think CT Pan is in this field. Just let me double check here. He is not. So the only one that I know of in this field that has played this, Bryson De Chambeau back in 2015. I believe it wasn't the U.S. Amateur. It was the collegiate event. He won the singles event there for SMU. So he was -8, I believe, over 4 days on this course. So kind of translating that over, I mean, it was 6 years ago now, that event, and it was, a completely different field. The course could be, a little bit changed by then, but I'm kind of looking at a winning score. I don't think it's going to be too high. I think this is going to be a fairly tough test. I'm going to talk about that here in a minute when we go through the course, but I'm looking at a winning score somewhere between -12 to -15. I'm going to show you why here. So, you look at this opening hole, we've got a ton of bunkers. As you can see right off the bat, undulation on the greens. That's one thing that you're going to hear a lot of this week. A little bit smaller than average. I believe it's around 6,000 square feet per green. But there's a lot of bunkering around these greens and a lot of undulation. So that's going to make, when you're looking at that strokes gained approach at the iron game, which is going to be important. I'm going to be breaking down strokes gained approach as one of my top stats, but within that strokes gained approach stat, I'm going to be looking a lot at proximity distances, kind of in that mid-range for your long hitters, and proximity ranges, those long proximity ranges for some shorter guys if you're targeting them. Simply because I don't think guys are just going to be gunning it down there. Bryson going to be hitting 350, 360-yard drives. If he is, there could be some trouble, simply because there's a lot of water. It's in play in 13 of the holes here. So it's going to force, I think, a lot of just trying to hit the fairway, just because there's so much trouble lurking off the tee. So we're going to see, generally we're going to want some mid-iron attacks, but, we're going to want some of that long iron baked into our models this week as well, if guys are going to be laying back a little bit, just to kind of play it safe, as to not give up a bunch of strokes to the field. So not only is approach going to be important this week, like look at this hole number 3 green. Like the runoffs there are absolutely incredible. We're going to see a lot when they put the flag over here on the left side of this green. You know, if guys are going to play safe, they're going to play to the green over here. But you know, if you're going to be attacking that pin, we're going to see a lot of balls in this bunker and a lot of balls just kind of running off the green. I think the Stimp has got it at like 12, so we got a little bit faster Bermuda greens here. So keep that in mind. That's going to lead me to also like this kind of little overhead view of hole number 4, surrounded by bunkers again. This isn't out of bounds stuff, but there's a lot of water, marshes, trees, just protecting these greens. So the approach shot's going to be huge. And like I said, just overall ball striking is going to be huge. Like look at number 6 here. We got this bunker that totally surrounds the whole entire thing. And where there's no bunker, there's water. So very tough. So the one thing that I am after the strokes gained approach, after the par 4 scoring, I'm really looking at strokes gained around the green with a lot of emphasis on sand saves, because with those runoffs, with these undulated greens, if guys aren't hitting the green, I think we're probably going to see somewhere in that 60%, 60 to 65% range in terms of GIR. I think the guys that are going to kind of be in that top half come Sunday and still competing for the win, or at least a top 10 here, are going to be pretty good around the green if they're not absolutely dialed in with those irons this week. So I think that's going to be an important part. And then if you want to put it in just because of the greens, just because of the undulation, you maybe want to look at maybe a little bit of 3-putt avoidance. We could see a lot of 3-putts here with some tough putts. Like if you're hitting the green on the wrong level on some of these greens here, see if I can find one that's a little bit. Yeah, so this one's pretty undulated. So if you were to hit it here, I mean, it's going to be tough to get it in range to get a 2-putt on some of these putts. So 3-putt avoidance can definitely be key. Looking at that on some of these undulated greens, it's something I include in my models on a lot of these undulated green golf courses. So as you can see, just kind of flipping through all the holes here, a lot of water, a lot of sand, smaller undulated greens. So you're going to have to be good pretty much tee to green. And then we're going to be looking for some guys who are maybe putting a little bit better on Bermuda. So we'll go back here. We'll look at some plays that stand out here for me this week. At the top, like I said, I think Stars and Scrubs with a no-cut event always is in play, just simply because the price on these top guys is pushed down a little bit softer. We got a lot bigger top tier. The bottom tier guys, the so-called scrubs, aren't exactly scrubs. So like I said, we got 48 of the top 50 players in the world here. So that's definitely going to be one way to go. It's probably going to be the chalky build. If you're doing that, there's 3 guys that I really like at the top. It's close between Rahm and Johnson over 11K here. But for me, Jon Rahm has just been a little bit better off the tee than DJ lately. Both have been tremendous with their irons over these last 2 events, especially. Both have struggled with their putters a little bit. They haven't lost like a stroke. They're losing about 0.2, 0.3 strokes putting per round. So it's not a huge deal or a big concern, not like a Morikawa losing 7 strokes by any means, much like last week. But the iron games are on, tee to green. Both DJ and Rahm are looking good, but Rahm's been a little bit better, like I said, off the tee here lately. I think he's going to break through. He is my favorite play in this top tier, so I'm going to be going after him. He's been pretty good in the WGCs. St. Jude last year wasn't great, and I'm not weighing this into my model more than if I slide over here to the right. As you can see in my model, I've got nothing on that WGC history right now. And just for reference here, for anyone that is new to the sheet, what I'm looking at here, you've got official world golf rank, and that's just kind of a reference point. You've got odds, you've got the salaries for both sites. We've got the odds ranking, DK ranking, FanDuel ranking, and then this is just a differential between DK ranking and odds and FanDuel, just to see if we can point out some players that may be a little bit overpriced, maybe a little bit underpriced. So for instance, compared to his odds, Matthew Fitzpatrick is a little bit overpriced on DK and FanDuel. He's the 20th and 21st most expensive golfer on those sites, but he's 26th in odds. I'm not too concerned about that. I'll talk about that in a bit. I definitely like Fitzpatrick. As you can see here, he's a green core play for me. But that's one thing. And then this is blue section is normally course history, but because this is the first time that it has been used on the PGA Tour, we don't have any course history. So I went back and I put WGC stats and I left off the match play just because I wanted to reference the stroke play events only, average finish in those events, and average DraftKings scoring. And then we slide over and we look at current form. This is each player's last 10 events. Their average finish last 5 and 10, and average DK last 5 and 10. And then we get into stats in the green section. These are the raw stats. So if you're looking at strokes gained approach, this is Dustin Johnson gaining 1.147 strokes gained approach on the field for the season. Now, this isn't season stats. This is 90% current season, 10% last season. I always try and grab a little bit of sample size from last season just to kind of balance it out. And of course, the larger the sample size, I definitely like better. For shorter sample size, I like using Fantasy National Golf Club. We can really start breaking it down into last 4, 8, 12, 24 rounds data. So I kind of compare the two models together, and I'm going to talk about that here in a little bit as well. So there's a ton of different stats here. Generally, each week I concentrate on the strokes gained stats. Ball striking is always huge for me, and it just comes down to how I weigh approach versus off the tee, and that all depends. It's very course dependent, so that's going to change every week. But those two are definitely going to be core when we're looking at ball striking. Par 4 or 5 scoring, birdie or better percentage correlates very highly with DraftKings scoring, so that's always going to be in my model. When you slide over and look at the orange section here, this is just the rankings of all those stats from the green section so that we can actually form a model. So we got 100% spread across here. So I've got 25% on strokes gained approach, 10% on around the green and off the tee. We've got some long iron proximity, like I discussed, some par 4 scoring, very important, some par 5 scoring, a little less important to me so far. I'm going to evaluate round 1 and maybe adjust that going into showdowns for rounds 2 to 4. Birdie or better percentage, and then sand save as well, like I had talked about. And then over here on the right, this is the overall stats model. So this looks at the ranking of the stats model combined with course history, odds to win the tournament, and form. These 4 in form, and then you divide that into 100 or make that equal 100 here, and then you get your overall rankings on the far right and the far left. So that's kind of how I use the sheet each week. And like I said, it changes every week for the full tournament, and then throughout the week for showdowns, I will also come in here and tweak things as we go through round 1, 2, 3, and 4. I will put some weight on those for scoring, a little bit more on birdie or better percentage, because that's very important in terms of showdowns. So keep that in mind. John Rahm definitely stands out, like I said. Schauffele and Thomas, number 2 and 3 in the model here. I kind of leaning Xander a little bit more over Rahm, and just looking at Fantasy National right now, he's gained strokes in 8 of his last 8 straight in terms of strokes gained approach. He's been putting very well. When it comes to Justin Thomas, I've been on him for a while. I've just been waiting for him to break out. He missed the cut last week. I think he may be a nice pivot this week. I'm about to check ownership on Wednesday, but keep in mind he ruined a lot of people's lineups last week, especially me. Lost 6 strokes putting, so that was just absolutely terrible. He didn't gain a stroke in any strokes gained area. Is this a sign of him breaking down, or is he going to bounce back? If he's going to be lower owned, I'm probably going to be. I'm going to have more ownership than the field versus Schauffele. It's going to come down to those two guys in terms of ownership come Wednesday night when we start breaking down the projections. Tony Finau, very interesting here. I thought maybe after losing last week, like literally going down the stretch, he was in the clubhouse, sitting with that lead. All is Max Homa had to do on the 18th hole. He had, I think it was a 4 foot putt. He putts that, he wins. He missed, forcing a playoff. Give Tony, just open the door for Tony to get into the playoff there and win. He couldn't do it again. I thought maybe he'd go back to the Puerto Rico Open to try and drum up some of that, because that's where he got his only career win back in 2015, I believe it was, for that. But either way, this week, I think a lot of people are going to be a little butthurt over him not winning, although he did finish second, and there is a lot to be excited about with Tony Finau. Looking at just this 2020-2021 season so far, looking at the stats, he is second in strokes gained tee to green and ball striking in this field, second in strokes gained approach, third in opportunities gained, second in birdie or better, 30th in putting. So the putting is kind of what's let him down and not grab that win, and second in DraftKings scoring. So there's a lot to like with Tony Finau here, and if he's going to be a little bit lower owned because he didn't win last week, although he made it into a playoff after being 7 strokes down going into that final round, I don't know what people are missing here. I'm going to keep riding that Tony Finau train until he gets that win. I think I'll even be 21 to 1's a little low is for an outright bet. I would rather load up on like John Rahm at 11 to 1 if you're going to go that route. That's as for outright so far this week, I'm kind of looking at this top range with a couple guys, a little bit heavier bets, and then just kind of going down and grabbing a few lower to mid range guys, kind of in that 50 to 100 to 1 range. But I will post my final bets towards the end of the week in chat. Going down a little bit, I definitely like Victor Hovland. Didn't do so well in the WGC St. Jude, but again, I'm not weighing that at all right now. What I am weighing is form coming in, and Hovland is getting to be about as good as it gets here in terms of form. He's got top 5 finishes in 3 of his last 4. He's gained 9.5 strokes in his last 2 events on approach. He's also gained, which is very positive in terms of his putting. We've always talked about him as he's going to, once he figures that putter out, he's going to break through. And here we go. He's gained 5.2 strokes putting over his last 2 events. Can he make it 3 in a row? It's not even that crazy to think that he probably could, because he's gained 3 in a row as all the way back to August and September last year over the playoff events, Northern Trust, BMW, and Tour, or sorry, the PGA Championship, Northern Trust, and BMW going into the playoffs after that PGA Championship, gained strokes putting in 3 straight, and then in 5 of 6 events. So I'm definitely liking that there. Matthew Fitzpatrick, I definitely like. He's always played very well with the top players in the world in these WGC events. 7th or better in 4 of his last 5. He's coming off a nice event here last week as well. Scotty Scheffler, definitely liking in this tier. I think he's going to be a little bit lower owned. He's been all right. Top 25, top 26. T26 at the WGC Mexico, T15 at the St. Jude last year. He's coming in with some nice form, top 20s in 2 straight. Jason Day feels a little bit lower, underpriced, under 8K. It just seems a little crazy. I know it's a little bit of a roller coaster ride when it comes to Jason Day in terms of his finishes. He's either missing the cut by 4 or 5 strokes, or banking us a top 10. I'm going to take that risk this week, being that it's a WGC event. As you can see, he's finished 11th or better in 4 of his last 5 WGCs, coming off a T7 last week. Just wanted to just quickly peek at his stats here from last week. Or sorry, not last week. That was the AT&T Pro-Am, which was nice to see after he had missed cuts at the Farmers and the Waste Management as well. He turned around. He also lost a stroke on approach, but was awesome around the green and putting. So I definitely like to see that here at this course. I feel like it's kind of similar. I know the greens aren't as small as the AT&T, but I feel like that around the green and putting is going to be huge here at this course as well. Ryan Palmer, 10th in my model. He's just a little bit underpriced here as well for the season that he's had. In terms of this field, he's 15th in ball striking, 17th tee to green, 8th in par 4 scoring, and 8th in birdie or better percentage. So there's a lot to like with Palmer. He's been extremely consistent. Going back to, he missed the cut at the U.S. Open, but since that U.S. Open, he's made the cut in 5 straight events with 3 top 5s and 4 top 25. So he's just been very consistent. So for this price, he's been consistent with the approach shot. He's been consistent just ball striking overall. So 7,200 on DraftKings, 8,600 on FanDuel. I'm definitely on board. And then 2 value guys that I'm looking at right here, right now, early in the week. Abraham Ancer, he's been awesome at competing with the big boys at these WGC events lately. He's coming off of a poor event. I believe that was last week he missed the cut. I'm just going to bring that up here quickly. We'll go over that. Yes, at the Genesis. So his problem lately, he's lost strokes around the green and on the green putting combined in 3 straight, and lost strokes in 6 straight around the green. So that's kind of been his downfall, why he's missed the cut at the Sony and the Genesis. But Salmon straight in between that is a top 5 at the Amex, where his ball striking was on. So, I mean, that would have been a win, or at least contending for the win on Sunday, had he putted or been a little bit better around the green. And generally his putting, we're never worried about. Going back and looking at his last 20 events, he's gaining about 1.2 strokes per event. So I'm expecting the putting to turn around, and when it does, I can kind of see another top 10 upside from him, maybe in this event. But what I'm really looking for out of him this week, if the putter even gets back to field average, is something around the lines of like a top 25. And I think for 6,800, that's tremendous. 8,100 on FanDuel. And Kind of the same story for Lanto Griffin here. He seems a little bit underpriced compared to what he's been doing lately. Like he's in this field he's got a lot of sample size, 38 rounds so far this season. Out of this field this week, he's top 10 in strokes gained approach. That jumps off the page there right away for me. He lost 0.1 strokes on approach last week. Before that, he had gained strokes in 9 straight on the approach, 9 straight events. The putter has been absolutely on fire. He's gained strokes in that area in 5 straight and 7 of his last 8. So there's a lot to like about Lanto. T26 and T7 in his last 2 events. He's trending in terms of form. And again, a top 25 I think would be tremendous out of him. I think top 25 to top 30, as long as he's putting together some birdies. Him and Answer make a lot of sense, and another reason why I think Stars and Scrubs is definitely going to be a way to go this week, because you get a lot of safety, it feels like, with these guys sub 7K, with a lot of upside combined in there as well. I'm going to look at a lot more guys down in this lower 6K range later in the week. I'm going to highlight a few more plays, and then Dane and I will also have up our DFS rankings, points per dollar rankings for each price range on Wednesday as well. So that covers the WGC Workday. Now we will jump into the Puerto Rico Open. This is the first year I've done a sheet for both events at the same time. I wanted to put it together. The field is not as great, as you can tell. The average official world golf rankings, 804. Let's just sort that here just for a minute. I'll have no one inside the top 50 is here, and we've only got 5 players inside the top 100. That makes it a little bit difficult. The first thing that jumps off the page here when looking at that is the prices for these guys that we normally see in the 7K range are now in the 9 and 10K range. It's going to make building lineups feel weird, but we just kind of go off the statistics. And we'll try and build a lineup off of that. There's definitely some things that we're going to look at. So first of all, let's look at the course. It is a little, not a little bit, it's a lot different. In terms of course history, we're seeing winning scores last year. Hovland won -20, Martin Trainer 15, DA points -20, Tony Finau back in 2016. There's that Tony Finau win -12, -7. So we're going to see more birdies than we do at the WGC. We're back to the cut of top 65 and ties, so keep that in mind for this event. Looking at the course, it's a little bit wider off the tee, a little more forgiving off the tee. There is a little bit of water. I believe there's 8 water hazards in total. There's less bunkering here. The greens are a little safer. These are past palm greens. We don't have a lot of data on past palm, so I'm just looking at general strokes gained putting coming in, but it's not going to be key. Key for me here this week is, again, going to be strokes gained approach. Good drive percentage, I think, makes sense here, being that if you get off of the fairways, it's not as penal out there. They're going to be able to go a little bit wide off those. As you can see, it's a lot more open. So there's going to be some shots coming from the rough. It's not going to be too bad. So good drive percentage makes a lot of sense in there as well. But strokes gained approach, if you want to put in a little bit of rough proximity, possibly, even though this rough isn't going to be as penal as we see on other courses. The greens are protected again by some bunkering, but generally there are about 500 to 600 square feet on average bigger than we see at the Workday Championship this week. So a little more forgiving there, but generally I'm looking at strokes gained approach, birdie or better percentage, par 4 scoring for this event, and I've got that into the model over here. Approach over off the tee. I think distance can definitely help us out, but it's not something I'm looking at as key for me here this week. Par 4 over par 5. We're going to see some eagles. We look at the course statistics here. Got some eagles on that par 5, hole number 2. We see some eagles on the 18th hole. This is going back 2 years and looking at just the stats here. So a little bit of eagles. So for par 5s, I'm looking at par 5 birdie or better percentage over versus just par 5 scoring. If you're using Fantasy National, again, you can maybe throw in a little bit of eagle rate in there, eagle percentage, eagles gained. A little bit of course history in here, but again, not very high on the course history. There's a lot of players without that course history this week. So that's something else I do with my sheets, is build multiple models. So if you're not familiar with that, what you want to do, like what you're seeing now, is view only. You can't make any adjustments. You can't sort any columns. So what you're going to want to do is go up to File, make a copy, name it whatever you'd like, and click OK. That again is going to create your own copy. You're going to be able to sort rows. So like, for instance, if you wanted to sort by odds to win, you just come in here and click on one of these odds, go up to the top and click on data, sort A to Z, and then you're going to sort by odds. You can do that once you make your own copy. Something else that you can do is adjust the model. Whether you want to adjust the stats model specifically, whether you want to adjust the overall model. So if you want to build an overall model and see the rankings, just looking at statistics, you would erase all of this here and just go 100% on stats. That's going to give you the stats model ranking. If you want to go maybe 80% on stats, 20% on odds to win. If you want to maybe go 60% on stats, 20% on odds to win, and 20% on DraftKings scoring over the last 5 events, you can go that way. So sometimes what I will do, if we get a field like this Puerto Rico Open, where we've got a lot of players with course history, but we've also got a lot of players, especially in the top ranges, that don't have course history, is I'll go and I'll build 2 models. So I'll make a copy of the sheet, I'll have my original model, and then I'll go in and I'll build a secondary model, and I'll take out course history, and I'll tweak it a little bit. And then I'll look at the rankings of that model and the rankings of my other model and just kind of compare them and see what players stand out in both models, which ones stand out when we take course history out, and just build as many, some weeks I'll build 4 or 5 different models and just start comparing players. It all depends on how much time I have. But generally, my main model that you're going to see when I release the sheet is going to be like my cash game model overall. And then, like I said, I'll tweak throughout the week and start making other models just to kind of compare players. Even if I'm just looking at the stats model, I want to go in and I don't back test as much as I would like to. Just I cover too many sports. There's too much. There's just not enough hours in the day for me to go back and back test. I would really like to, but I'll sometimes on these courses, especially like the Masters coming up, let's say, where we have course history is huge, where I'm looking at course history, I'll maybe come and build some specific models or go and back test my stats model and look at the correlations of DraftKings scoring or finishing position for like the last 3 years in terms of the stats model that I had in there, and then just kind of tweak it going into years ahead. But generally, it's a pretty close to the same model each and every week for every course, and I will just tweak things just a tiny little bit depending on little nuances with the course or little differences in the course, like we talked about between the Grand Reserve this week versus the Concession Golf Club at the Workday at the other event this week. So there is some differences there, but generally I'm looking at a couple players I'm looking at targeting here. Emiliano Grillo, number 1 in the model. He's had top 5s in each of his last 2 trips to this event. He's made the cut in all 4. He's coming in with a little bit of form. He's probably got, he's had some showing the most upside of any of these guys at the top. Thomas Peters, number 1 in price, and going to be GPP only. He's just going to be a lot tougher to build around in an event like this, but he was tremendous at the U.S. Open. That's his last time he's teed it up on the PGA Tour. That was back in September. But when he gets going, I mean, he could run away. He's the kind of player that could be putting together 25, 30 birdies and running away with this thing. He's also the kind of player that could be driving a bunch in the water and not make the cut. So GPP only just with his upside. Brandon Grace, definitely back on him here this week. It's been a while since I've been on him. This is kind of the field where we want to look to target him. He's been struggling a little bit overall in some of these bigger events. But in 2021, he missed the cut at the Sony Open. He lost strokes in every single area. But since then, things have started to trend up. He finished T34 at the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro. Call it the Pro-Am. It wasn't the Pro-Am this year at the Pebble Beach this year. He gained strokes both off the tee and approach and putting. Struggled around the green. And then the Genesis last week, he finished T20. He gained over 5 strokes tee to green. That was tremendous to see, especially considering he lost 1.3 strokes off the tee and negative, 0.7 strokes he lost putting as well. So the approach shot, he gained 4.2 strokes, and he was excellent around the green. So I love seeing that from Grace coming into this event. He's a player that has a lot more, he's 147th in the world, but he's got a lot of talent out there. There's a lot of upside with Grace, and he's had some decent form, like I said, coming in. Jonathan Vegas is going to be GPP only. He's a player that's a little bit overpriced. It feels like more than other players, so he's going to be GPP only for me. He's lost strokes on approach in 3 straight. He's lost strokes around the green in 5 straight and putting in 2 straight. So there's just not enough for me to trust him in like a cash game build, so GPP only there. Excellent to see that he's got course history there. top 10 last year. Justin Sue, number one in my model. I don't know how this is going to shake out in terms of ownership for this event, but in terms of this field, anyway, he's only got 14 rounds of this season. But in this field, he's fourth in ball striking, first in approach, fifth in proximity. So the iron game is solid. I like to see that. He's 17th in par 4 scoring, third in birdie or better percentage, and first in putting in those events. And so far this year, he has played Corrales, T14, T8 at the Shriners. He missed the cut at the Bermuda, and then followed that up with back in January after an extended break from that Bermuda in November. I think it's looks like 2.5 months almost he took off, taken off. And at the Farmers, he posted a T37, gaining 1.5 strokes on approach, 0.4 strokes around the green, and 4.3 strokes putting. So that was awesome to see from Sue. So I definitely like him at 9,000. I'm going to be taking some shots with him, even though he missed the cut here last year. He's got some more experience now. I can see him making a cut and have that top 10 upside and possibly being there on Sunday contending for the win. Going down a little bit, there's a couple players that stand out to me kind of in that mid-range, and that is Bronson Burgoon and Cameron Percy. First of all, with Burgoon, he's just been solid. He's made 3 straight cuts, although it's only been a T47, T42, T37 at those events. Had trouble at Pebble Beach. He lost 6.4 strokes on approach after gaining over 6 at the Farmers and the Amex combined. But the putter was hot, which saved him making the cut there that week. So I definitely like him in this field. Cameron Percy, I like a little bit more just simply because of the approach shot. He comes in gaining strokes on approach in 5 of his last 6 events that count. That leaves out the Bermuda and Corrales. He would have gained, looking at shot tracker, he would have gained at Corrales, who's a T8 there. So the iron game has been on. He's been decent around the greens. He's not losing strokes around the green. He's not losing a ton of strokes putting. He's kind of, between that -1 to +2 gained strokes per round there. So over the last 2 events, he's gained over 7 strokes tee to green. So definitely looking at Percy in that mid 7K range. In this field, seems like these 2 players, excellent value. Scott Brown, good to see him come back with a finish in his last event because the form wasn't there. He had missed 3 straight, 4 of his 5 cuts there, but he went to Pebble Beach. He gained 1.7 strokes on approach, finished with a T30 there. That was awesome to see because he comes in with some excellent course history. I used him as my one and done pick here last year because if anyone's in a one and done league, make sure you make both your picks this week. Scott Brown was my pick last year because of the course history. As you can see, he let me down. I'm going right back to the well with him this week. And it's pretty close. It's either him or Brandon Grace, but that's kind of who I've narrowed it down to. I'm going to have more picks up for this event. I haven't dug in completely into the models yet or made my separate models for this. I will do that, provide some more, and I am going to provide a skeleton for both events this week. So stay tuned for that. I'll have one and done picks for both. I'll have outright top 5, 10, and 20 picks for both, and then I'm going to guarantee that I will have the Workday Championship in tournament statistics for Showdown updated. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do the Puerto Rico Open. It's my 7-year-old daughter's birthday. She's 6 right now. It's going to be her 7th birthday on Monday, but we're headed up to the city for her birthday this weekend on Sunday and Saturday. So I'm not 100% I'll be able to get the Puerto Rico done in terms of in-tournament stats, but I'm sure going to try for you guys. If you have any if you have any questions that you're looking for of any information that I did not cover in this video, make sure to hit me up in the chats. Make sure to hit me up on Twitter. Make sure to hit me up pretty much anywhere. Thanks for watching the video. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we will see you next week. Good luck out there.